One of the most famous soliloquies in a play by Shakespeare is when Romeo was observing Juliet on the balcony and he asked, "What's in a name?" This is a question that I would pose to our next guest, Star White. What's in a name? This is a question not only that I posed to her, but a question that she had to answer herself as she found herself going through life and its many challenges. So that you can know more about Star and what's in her name, let's introduce her now, Star White. Welcome to Surviving Change.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay, so nice to have you here. One of the things I would just like to share is that a lot of times we don't take into consideration our names. Mm-hmm. And so if you would just tell us a moment about how you got your name, and then we'll eventually get to the part of where you began to understand what was in your name.
Okay. Actually, I was named by my aunt and my father. And the whole backstory is my sister's name is Landy. So the story that my mom and my father gave us was they gave her control of the land and they gave me control of the sky. Mm-hmm. And so all while I was being raised, I was told, you know, the sky is the limit, you are a star. So for me, I went through a journey of trying to figure out what does that mean. I am a star, I am a star. And then when I went to the church, my first lady shared with me, she would always say, "Is that the real star? Is that the real star?" And I would say, "Yes, ma'am, it's the real star," but I would always not really understand what that meant. It wasn't until I got married and had children that I discovered the real star is not actually me, it's the God in me. Mm-hmm. And when I allow the real star to show through me, mm-hmm. then I am being a star because I'm allowing his light to shine through me.
Okay, clearly that was an epiphany that took many years for you to come to. There wasn't anything that, you know, your first lady said to you, and you're like, yes, the real star is God in me. Right. So let's talk about this journey. Let's talk about growing up Star, mm-hmm. and hearing your parents tell you that the sky's the limit, but recognizing from an early age that there were some limitations that you had to fight through, particularly academically. If you would share that with us.
Sure. Well, my father and mother separated when I was young. Mm-hmm. So I only know the stories that my mom shared with me about him. But around maybe the age of 7 or 8, I discovered that my father was illiterate. And he was an adult, unable to read and write. So my sister would write him stories and letters, and he would never write back. And so my mom sat us down and shared with us his journey and explained why he could not continue school during that time frame. And I just made a vow to myself, like, I am going to learn how to read and write. And that was just what I said. I said I was going to learn how to read and write, and I was going to empower others to read and write and just educate themselves as much as possible. But when I was in elementary school, I faced the difficulty myself. I had dyslexia, and letters were mixing around for me, numbers were backwards, and I would write, you know, incorrectly. But my coach, she just really blessed me. She was patient with me, and she would say, no, you can do this. You just have to really think about it, and you have to concentrate on it. So it took me a couple of years to understand how to basically come to my potential that I am, but that process within itself just kind of held me back a little bit. And but I'm grateful for it because I'm now an English language arts teacher, teaching children, you know, and helping them to understand the importance of reading and helping them learn how to read just where they are. So it's a blessing.
Okay. And so clearly, as you go through high school, you were far from illiterate. Mm-hmm. One of your accolades, I believe, before you graduated in Who's Who, and what was your GPA again?
My GPA was a 3.6. Yay! Yes. It was a 3.6, and I was really proud of that because it was a journey for me, and I just thank God for it.
Okay. So now you have surpassed the typecast, because a lot of people will get caught up on family, mm-hmm. and the genetics. If my dad was illiterate, that gives me an excuse not to try. You embraced a process for excellence, living up to why you were given the name of Star, and you go on to college, mm-hmm. and in college you meet The guy. Okay. And tell us about that, just a little bit about that process.
Well, actually, just before I met the guy, my bachelor's, actually, I decided to have my bachelor's in writing and linguistics, and it was somewhat difficult, but I made it through. And there was one student that I met who shared with the class that she felt if any student's parents did not go to school, then they don't deserve to go to school. And my teacher knew about my journey. She knew about my father. And so she said, I don't know. So she opened up the room for any comments and everything. And people made their comments, and I just kind of held back. And I was reserved in the sense of I didn't want anyone to know about my father's downfall, but the inside of me wanted to kind of speak up. And so the teacher said, well, Star, do you have anything to say about this? And at that moment, I had to make a decision. And I chose, and I regret it to this day, I chose not to say anything. I chose not to say anything, and I said, I'll just show who I am through my actions, and I won't get into a conversation about my family. But then, going forward, my senior year in college, I was blessed to meet Stefan, and it was an online situation. I met him online. It was very unconventional. He was in Iraq, and I was at Georgia Southern. We talked for about 15 months as just friends, and when he returned home, we dated. We dated for 6 months, and within that 6 months process, he talked to my mom and asked if he could ask for my hand. I also have a spiritual father at the church. He went and met with him for dinner and asked for my hand. And I didn't know about any of this. He and my mom would go ring shopping for me and everything. And so on Christmas Eve, he, in front of my whole family, presented me with a box inside of a box, and the box was about this big. So I really had about 9 boxes to go through, and there was a little box on the inside, and I opened it, and I was really shocked, and I didn't know what to do because we had only been dating for 6 months. Well, I looked up, and my brother and my sister, along with Stefan, were standing in my face, and he just got on his knees, and they started singing. My family sings. So they started singing. He can't sing, but he tried, and it was really funny and cute. And he got on his knees and asked me if I would marry him, and my whole family was there. It was just one of those dreams, and I said yes. And 6 months later, we were married.
Okay. So it seems like every part of your name is being manifested in your life. You've graduated from high school, one of the top in your class. You're who's who among American high school students. You have this getting ready to get your college degree, or you finish your college degree, and it's in an area that you never thought that you would get a degree in. You've gone past what the world might say would be a pitfall for you. You've married the man of your dreams. It was a fairy tale proposal. You have these 3 beautiful girls, and you go back to school for your master's, and then?
Well, I went back to school for my master's, and midway through my journey to obtain my master's, I had some issues, some health issues. I didn't understand why I was losing energy. I would go to work and come home, cook dinner, try to be wifey, mommy, and everything. And by 7 or 8 o'clock, I was exhausted. And when I would go to sleep, I would wake up because I couldn't breathe. And I didn't know or understand what was going on. I just thought, I don't know, but I have to just keep living. My aunt actually saw that my throat was getting large, and she said, Star, your throat is growing. And I was like, no, I'm just gaining weight. And, I tried to pass it off, and she said, well, I think you need to go to the doctor. I went to the doctor and discovered that I had a tumor. I had 2 tumors, actually. I had a brain tumor, And then I had, actually it was a goiter, and the goiter was growing in my throat, and it was pushing my breathing tube, which was causing me to be unable to breathe. The doctor just kind of put everything out there to me on that one day, and I remember my husband and I were at the doctor's office. My mom had the children. My whole family was actually at the house because they knew something was wrong, and that was the day I was going to receive my results. So we were at the doctor's office, and he shared with me that I had a brain tumor. He shared with me that I had a goiter, and he shared with me that you're going to have surgery really soon. And so I became fearful. How do you deal with that? I thought about, Lord, I want to see my babies grow up. I want to be able to, be a grandmother one day after they get married. I had all of those thoughts and fears inside of me. And my husband, when we left the doctor, he said, let's not go home right now. I just want you to kind of clear your mind. So he took me to the mall. He took me to dinner. He just kind of tried to get me to get out of the space that I was in. And I thank God for that. So when we finally made it to my mother's house and everybody was there, they were kind of like, well, what's going on? What's this? What's that? But I think that time that I had to really think clearly with my husband, that time that we had together, helped me to just deliver what was going on with me and the decisions that I had to make. I had to decide if I was going to go on and have brain surgery and the goiter surgery, or if I wanted to opt out for medicine. And I just had to make all these decisions really quickly. So I ended up having surgery to have the goiter removed, and I opted not to have surgery for the brain tumor. So they put me on medication, and I was on the medication for 2.5 years. But within those 2.5 years, the medication was heavy. It was, the way the doctor explained it to me was, it's an Alzheimer's medicine. So you have to do brain activities. You have to do certain things to keep your brain active. And I thought about those moments and the challenges that I faced with learning how to do things, and if I was going to lose that. But I did. I did word search. I did everything to keep my brain active. And 2.5 years later, when I went to the doctor and he shared with me that I didn't have a brain tumor anymore,
Wow.
It just really blessed my soul. And I'm grateful to say it's been 5 years, and no return. And I believe that it will not return.
Amen. Well, that's totally awesome. I think that I know for myself, I don't care what other people say. This is the truth that I choose to dwell in. That when you set your sights on things above, when you really concentrate on God, when you really make your desires known, that He will give you the desires of your heart. Right. And He placed in you, I believe, the desire to learn, the desire to be better than what the limitations state. For you to believe at that moment was based on that desire that you had been given to be a learner, to be able to surpass those limitations. And He blessed you in that moment, just in your faithfulness to the dream, to the desire, to do that and go beyond that. So what are some ways in which having this success, this miracle, if people choose to look at it that way, because clearly they could have done the surgery, they could have been, let's get it now. But you stepped out and you believe that in the midst of me taking this medicine, that God would heal and it would not take away my ability to learn and to thrive. So how has your story been able to minister to others?
Well, the blessing is, just about 3 months prior to me being diagnosed, a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer. And she shared her story online, and she had a blog, and every day she was so hopeful and uplifting. And she said, and I just remember reading it, she said, I didn't ask God, why me? I said, wow, God, you chose me. And I'm taking this challenge, and I'm going to surpass this, and I'm going to be an example to others. And that just really blessed my soul. And I said, well, God, I'm not going to ask you why me, but I am going to take this challenge. And I think my hearing it from her, and just those 3 months of watching her, and actually I watched her through the whole thing, it just encouraged me. And on the day that I ended up having to have surgery for the thyroid, she was in chemotherapy. And we were just, contacting each other. But the blessing is that when I came out of that surgery, the doctor, and it's amazing you said miracle, because the doctor came out and he requested to see my husband, and he said, your wife is a walking miracle. He said that my breathing tube was bent so far that no air was coming through, and he said, I don't know how your wife was breathing. And he said, she is a miracle, and you need to thank God for her. Now, that's the doctor telling that to my husband. And then they did share with me that I may not have my voice back. I may not be able to sing ever again. I may not have, this and that. And but I said, God, if you give me my voice back and allow me to sing, I'm going to sing unto you. So now I sing on a praise team for the Lord because he gave that to me. But another blessing is in my helping others, that journey that I had to walk through wasn't for me. And I realized that when I shared my story online, and my daughter was at a private school, and I went to go pick her up from school, the very next day from sharing my story, a parent stopped me. We talked for 2.5 hours, and she was explaining, she was a single parent. She was explaining to me that she had the same thing. Well, she said, I didn't know what it is, and I didn't know about going to the doctor, and she was fearful. So our conversation and my story encouraged her to go to the doctor. Turns out hers was cancerous, but she did have to have surgery. But just that relationship, the Lord allowed me to be a window for him to reach her. And that's why I try to tell my story to anybody, because God allows us to go through things, not just for us, but for others. And when we share our testimony with others, then they're able to see how God is and how he works. And it was just a blessing, because she, being a single parent, not knowing, and had she never gone to the doctor, where would she be today? So today she's blessed. She has her son. She's doing well. And and I can't do anything but give God thanks for that, because he allowed me to be a vessel so he could reach her. That was the real star using me.
Yeah. That's awesome. You mentioned that God gave you, that he created you to be a miracle, that he gave you grace during this process. I had another guest who talked about the grace that God gave her through the process and being able to go through. And I remember mentioning to you several days ago that I didn't even know that you were going through that struggle. And it's so amazing, because I think there may be two reasons why people don't acknowledge or see what someone's going through. One, because they might be spending too much time thinking about themselves, which could have been me at different points in my life, as some of us, we do have those moments.
We all do.
And then the other, I believe, just from your testimony and the testimony that was shared by another guest, is that you are walking under the grace of God. That he is not only shielding and protecting you, but ultimately shielding and protecting others. I can only imagine the feedback you may have gotten from people who believe, the fear that would have come in. They're like, oh my God, Star, she's not gonna be able to sing, she's not gonna be able to this, and what that may have done to you as you're trying to walk in God's grace and believe and recognize that God can do the impossible. He's done it for others, he can do it for me. What would you say to the individual who just not feeling that grace? Like, yeah, I hear you, but I'm really not feeling why God did this to me.
Well, I think that, this is what I was saying. God allows us to go through things so that we can transition to a greater. So don't perceive it as, why me? Perceive your challenges as an opportunity, as a moment to see how good God really is, and see how he will walk you through that thing and guide you through it into completion. So that's my best advice. Change your perspective. Don't look at it as, why me? It's wow, me.
Oh, it's wow me.
Wow me.
Wow me. So as you changed your perspective and the tumor is gone, the goiter has been removed without you dying because you don't know how the air was. Well, we know that it was only God, and the doctor even said himself,
Right.
it was a miracle. So now that you've come through that process, what do you see is next for the Real Star? Do you feel that do you still feel there's no limit, or is your limit now guided by a greater purpose?
I still feel that there is no limit, and this is why. When I used to work for a job where my boss, anything I did, it was wrong. And that's okay. That was his opinion. But during that time, I was going through the brain tumor. I was taking the medicine. I was, my quality of work had become very poor. And I wanted to leave, and I said, God, I have to leave this place, but it wasn't the time for me to leave. And in those last 2 years of my time there, I got closer to the Lord. I found moments where it was just me and him, and I would talk to him, and he would guide me, and those became precious moments. So when he released me from there, and I remember on the phone, my husband said, "Sorry, leave. It's over." And I was able to leave. I remember being on the elevator, and I said, "Lord, when I step out this elevator, I'm walking into whatever you have for me." I didn't miss a beat because on the elevator, my phone rang. I had an email about a job opportunity. I went to I filled out the application. I had an interview the next week. It was just a summer position, but I did it. At the end of that, I said, "Okay, Lord, where we going now?" And I discovered another job. I applied for it. I was hired for it. So everything that I do now is guided by Christ. And when I'm confident in that, then he never fails. He never fails. Only time that we may feel like God is failing us is when we're not trusting him. So my trust is in him, and I don't even know what my future holds for me, but I know that if my trust is in the Lord and if I keep my mind on him, he'll keep me in peace, and he will continue to flourish me in the direction in which the plans that he had for me. So I'm content with that.
That's amazing. You made reference to scripture says he will keep you in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed, on thee. And one thing that I often find is when I'm flustered and frustrated, I know that my mind is not focused, on God. And so it's reassuring to know that we all have those moments where we have to remind ourselves, hey, if you want peace, if you want direction, take time off of what you're dealing with. Take time off of the people you might be focusing on and spend time alone with me. Every person I've talked to, not just this season, but in the previous season, has alluded to that time with God, that closeness with God, where everyone else and everything else is out of the picture and it's just you and God. Right. And at that moment, God is giving you the wisdom and the strength and the peace that you need to go forward and to go and do those other things. Now, as far as the Real Star, you say the Real Star was manifested in how you have responded to the illness that is now so far in the past. How has the Real Star shown herself to her daughters and her husband?
That is a daily journey, and the way that I look at it is my responsibilities as a wife and a mother is the very first ministry that God has given me, and then all the other things come after that. And so for my girls, I try to set an example for them. I try to, when I see something going in the wrong direction, I try to be as transparent as possible with them. And I'm beginning to see that even though sometimes it seems like they're not listening, they hear me, and the Lord shows me little bitty clippings of, they see she heard you, So my oldest daughter, Cheyenne, is a really good big sister. You know, she's very responsible. She is developing her own character, but she is very mindful of how her mother does things, and she still enjoys walking in my heels and, you know, little things like that. But the things that I talk about, I have to make sure that the words that come out of my mouth are pure, or that they're not where they're destroying someone else, because I don't want them to develop those characteristics. And then I'm not perfect though, but then when I do something like that, the Lord shows me, is that what you really want to show? And I have to be transparent with my girls. You know what, mommy said the wrong thing. That's not of God. I'm sorry. And I have to apologize to them, you know. And so for my husband and I, we try our best to be as transparent with our girls as possible. We let them know about a lot of things. And then we also guide them to, but what does God say? What does the word say? And that not only helps them, it helps us, because it helps us stay grounded, and it helps us to realize, no, we're not perfect, but this is a journey that if we keep our foundation on God, then he will continue to flourish. And it's a blessing to hear my G-Mama share with me, and some other ladies, older ladies, share with me. They said, your girls are raised old school. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, and they just said, you raised them old school, and I like it. Just keep doing what you're doing. And so I didn't think, you know, anything of it initially. What do you mean I raised my girls old school? But I guess it's a blessing. And I pray that in their saying, in their belief, that we are raising them the way that we should. The way that we should. And I'm just excited because I get to go along this parenting journey with my husband, and I do believe that I'm married to the best man in the whole wide world. And I am biased.
As you should be. You can be that.
I am biased. But, you know, he stuck with me when I had all of this, and he wasn't judgmental. And he is a man of God. And when I say that, when he does something wrong, and the Lord deals with him, he has no issue coming back to say, babe, I think we did this wrong, or babe, this is what happened. I think we need to go about it this way. So I thank God for that he hears from him, that he's able to, you know, allow his relationship with the Lord to shine through our marriage. So that's a blessing. And then prior to us even getting married, he took on responsibilities for me before we were even married. Yeah. So, you know, I just thank God that God brought him into my life. I do believe that he created him just for me.
Okay, and we know that no star shines alone, and so it is a blessing, as I call your daughters the starlets.
Yes.
Because of how they look. But what these older women are talking about is the reflection of Christ, which is a reflection of you, because they are able to see that you have put into them the grounding that's in you that allows you to be the real star, that allows you to be in a cluster of stars with your family and to really minister God's grace to others. I want to thank everyone who joined us today to listen to Star's story, and regardless of what your name is, and we know that some of you have some really interesting names, God knows you by your name. He knows who he has called you to be. And because he knows who he has called you to be, he has prepared you to face any obstacle in your life. Not why me, but wow me. What an honor to know that God trusts us enough to take us through any challenge, any obstacle, anything that we face, and bring us out on the other side as survivors. So until we come back again, I am Angela Addison. I want to thank you. I want to thank my guest, Star White, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Surviving Change.